Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be showing you another version of Joker, and this is Heath Ledger's version of Joker. I've already done a drawing of this character, but that was done in colored pencil. This one is going to be in charcoal, so let's have a look. Sometimes people ask me how I do the initial sketch. I like to use a combination of tracing and freehand. I usually use tracing to position some of the main distances, such as the distance between the eye sockets or the width of the head or the nose and the mouth. And after that I like to do a more elaborate sketch using freehand. I like to use freehand whenever possible, and I just use eyeballing whenever I can. I don't really like measuring too much. Anyway, for sketching I usually use a graphite pencil, although sometimes with some charcoal drawings I can also use vine charcoal for sketching as well. Here, as you can see, for his hair, I started working a little bit with a black colored pencil to get some of these cleaner hairs, cleaner lines, because charcoal, when you start blending it, sometimes you lose these clean lines. So I wanted to have a few of these cleaner lines to begin with, and then I started working with charcoal using a combination of a medium charcoal pencil and a soft charcoal pencil. A medium charcoal pencil is in a way more similar to a black colored pencil because it can be sharpened really well, and it can produce finer lines. A soft charcoal pencil is a little bit darker, and it will allow me to create more depth by creating some of these darker areas in between these segments of hair. And naturally, once I do most of the hair, I will have to go back and pull some highlights. But here I decided, instead of using just an eraser, I also decided to use a little bit of white charcoal, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how I used white charcoal in this drawing. So in this drawing I used a combination of regular charcoal and white charcoal. Here I'm using a blending tool, Tortillion, to soften some of these lines and blend them a little bit, and add a little more value so that the hair would look a little more realistic, and so that I can give it a little more volume. But anyway, I started talking about white charcoal. I'm not really sure what white charcoal is, whether it's something like chalk or it's actual charcoal. I don't really know. All I know is that here it will be useful for a couple of things, and we'll get to it in a minute. But first I'm starting to work on some of these darker areas around his eyes and the nose. I'm just positioning some of the main elements or main parts of the face, and now I'm shading the area around the eyes. He of course has heavy makeup in this role, and I'm going to try to capture that as much as possible, as well as his scars and wrinkles and all the other stuff. So this is an interesting character to draw. Heath Ledger's Joker is probably the most favorite one for most people. It was also a decent movie with some interesting themes, but I'm not going to get into it too much. Now I'm just going to focus on the drawing. I don't want to make this narrated video too long, because I've already done a drawing of Joker, and I've done different versions of Joker as well. But if you want to see the colored pencil version of this character, I'm going to put some links in the end screen and the description if you like, so that you can watch that as well. These are some of my most popular videos, so I'm doing this again, but this time in charcoal. And here, as you can see, I'm using this white charcoal, and I'm covering most of the face with it. Now, why am I doing this when the paper is already white? Well, I just thought that white charcoal would allow me to create that effect of smeared makeup that he has in the movie. So when I lay down that white charcoal and I start working over it with black charcoal and a black colored pencil, hopefully I will be able to create an effect that looks similar to spoiled makeup or smeared makeup. That's kind of messy and where the skin and some of the darker tones are showing through. And I'm also using my brushes to work on that effect as well, and to shade the sides of the face, because obviously these need to be a little bit darker so that I can give the face, or rather the entire head, more shape and volume. I can't just leave it white, it would look too flat. So I have to shade the sides of the face, and I have to shade the area around the eye sockets and around the nose and the mouth. So I need to be able to show the topography of the face so that we can feel that some parts of it are sticking out while others are kind of deeper in the shadow, and that's what I'm working on using a combination of my pencils and blending tools. In case you're wondering what those scissors are doing over there in the top left corner of the screen, I didn't use them for this drawing. It's just that I had some trouble sharpening my charcoal pencils because they kept breaking. My sharpener was dull. I was probably using it for too long, and then bits of the charcoal pencil got stuck in it, and then I had to remove it, and I don't know, these scissors were the first thing that came to mind because I had to pry those pieces of charcoal out of the sharpener. So sometimes some parts of this drawing process can be a little bit frustrating and a little bit boring. Not all of it is very creative and fun, but it is what it is. So I've done most of the work on the eyes and the shadow and the makeup around the eyes and on the eye sockets, and I'm moving on to the mouth. The thing about this image is that it really has a lot of areas of high contrast. It's not just the makeup, it's also the lighting, which creates these big shadows under the nose and under the eyebrows and under the mouth and the chin. So a lot of contrast, which is further emphasized, of course, by his makeup, because he has white paint or makeup over his face, and then that lipstick or whatever on his mouth, and everything else. But I also have to work around these and in these wrinkles around the eyes and the nose, so that I'm not only describing the shape of the face, but also trying to suggest that this makeup kind of got smeared and is following the shape of the face and the wrinkles of the face. And now I'm just adding some more details to the hair and trying to pull some highlights, because he also has some weird highlights in his hair. We can't really see that because this is going to be a black and white drawing, but his hair in the movie was kind of I don't know, I think a mixture of his natural here and radioactive green and whatnot. So I'm trying to add in some of these details as well. And it's kind of slicked back, so I need to capture that wet look as well. And I'm shading around these wrinkles so that it looks like the makeup broke and the skin is showing through. And of course he has these huge scars around the mouth, and these parts of the face need to be a lot darker. So here I'm adding some more hair on the right as well. But I'm doing this in several stages because once I start working on the background, I'm going to have to go back to the hair and finish the way it looks, because I'm going to have to add some final touches anyway. So I'm adding some highlights here as well. I'm pretty happy with the way the face looks at the moment, so I don't really have too much work to do now. But now I'm moving on to the background, and I'm going to be using mostly vine charcoal for this, and I'm going to be adding some suggestions of bricks in the back, because I want it to look like he is in prison or in an interrogation room. It doesn't really matter, but I want a brick wall behind him. So you can see I wasn't really happy with the amount of value in the background, so I kept adding a little more vine charcoal to make this a little bit darker. Why did I want to make it a little bit darker? Because I wanted the white of his face to stand out a little bit more. And as you can see, I just added some suggestions of those bricks in the back and went over them with a brush. Nothing too detailed, just a blurry background with a brick wall. It'll be enough to complete this scene. So once I finish the work on the hair and do a little bit more shading on the face, I'm going to be moving on to the clothes. And this is generally the most boring part for me, drawing clothes, because I always use most of my energy on drawing the face. And plus his shirt has a very complicated and elaborate pattern, so I'm not really sure how I'm going to handle that, but I'm just going to do the best I can with the amount of patience that I have, and I'm just going to try to simplify it a little bit. But first I'm just going to draw some of these darker lines and darker shapes, and then later I'm going to go and start working on the detail. So he has a vest on top of that shirt and a tie. The vest is fairly simple, but the rest of it is going to have some patterns, and it's going to require a little bit more work. And I'm going to be doing all of this with a combination of mostly charcoal pencil and vine charcoal. The vine charcoal allows me to blend more smoothly and create these smoother transitions, and also it can be erased a little bit more easily. So here, as you can see, I started working on the shirt and trying to create some patterns. It has all kinds of lines and dots and all kinds of stuff, but I'm just going to do the best I can, and later, if I'm not really happy with the way it turned out, I'm just going to add a little bit of white charcoal on top of that, and hopefully that'll improve its appearance a little bit. But I'm not really going to record all of it. I will skip over a part of the footage, as you will see later, because I'm not really sure how interesting that'll be to most of the viewers. So as you can see, I'm not a very patient person, but sometimes you do need to take a little bit more time to work on the clothes, at least to make sure that the shading looks good. Because if you get the shading and the larger relationships between lighter and darker areas right, I mean, then everything will look better, at least when you look at it from a distance. These details, these smaller details, such as these dots and lines, I think they are less important. The most important thing is to get these darker areas in place, mostly this area around the tie and under the neck and stuff like that. So I'm just finishing the shading on the vest and trying to make sure that I clean up the edges so that we know where the end of that vest and where the end of his shoulders is and where the background begins. And once I do that, I think the drawing will be done, because I've already done a lot of work on the face, so I don't really want to spend too much time working on the clothes. And here, as you can see, I'm pretty much done with the drawing. I'm just going to sign it here, and that's it. I'm going to move it around a little bit and try to zoom in so that you can see more of the details on the face and some of the textures that I managed to produce using my technique, a combination of white charcoal and some other pencils. That's it for now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out my other videos and subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.